Good afternoon. Welcome. As usual, we have a need to read the fire announcement. In the event of fire alarm sounds, please remain in the auditorium and remain seated. Should there be a need to evacuate, a Springmore staff member will direct you on how to leave in an orderly fashion. Please remember not to use the elevator and go outside and find a red pole. If you haven't already, please silence your cell phones. We're glad to have all of you here in person, and welcome to the million more who are out on TV land listening to us today. I want to know if there are any residents who are here for your first resident association meeting. If so, would you raise your hand? We've got a roving microphone here, and when she comes around, will you give your name and the location where you now live?
Stand up.
And you can stand up. I'm Gretchen Kimmer, and I'm in room 309, which is a long, long, long walk.
Oh, she's going to make me do it. Someone said I was here before, and I was cheating. I'm Jean Smith, and I moved in May 29th, and I'm down in 114.
I've got one right here, and then I'll get right back there.
We're Sandy and Lindsay Jordan. We've been in about 2 weeks, and we're across the way over there.
What's that room number?
2427.
Very good.
Okay.
Stand up.
We've been here since July, Nat and Roberta Smith, and we're in 351, waiting to get to a bigger place.
Okay. Well, welcome to all of you. I hope you will enjoy the meeting today, and that you will find the opportunity to come back to our monthly meetings. We have a couple of announcements. We have first one, back to school project. Thank you, John.
Thanks, Alan. Just a few words about the school supplies campaign. We're involved in it again this year, and I know everybody who thinks about it and sees the bins out in the portico or downstairs around the corner from the store, or have read the announcement in the flyer, your first thought that comes to your head, oh, this is a pretty nice thing. It's a nice thing to do. The old folks at Springmore are going to give pencils to the kids. And it is a nice thing to do, but it is way more than that. It identifies a serious community need. Our partner schools, Leadmine Elementary and Lynn Road, are both designated as Title I schools in North Carolina. Now, setting aside all the administrative gobbledygook that gets you assigned that, it means that a significant portion of each of those schools, the students are living at or below the poverty line. And if you think about a family with food insecurity because they don't have enough money, as they set their priorities, are they going to buy pencils and paper, or they're going to buy something to eat? And I think it's pretty easy to make the choice, but that leaves a lot of kids without materials that they need to learn and become productive citizens. So we and others have are joining in together to help supply the need that's there. So as you think about it and you see the bins, please do what you can to fill them up. If you're wondering, if some of you have mobility issues and can't get to the stores, there are lots of things you can do. There are online options. There are Springmore buses that are carrying up to shopping sites. There are if you have friends might go shopping for you. The point is, if you want to do it, we can figure out a way to help you make your contribution. So please do it. Think about it and just remember that you're going to be addressing something that is more than just nice. It's necessary for these students. Thanks.
Thank you very much for the information and your support of this important project. Elaine Gillespie has a few words to say about our yard sale.
Well, I think you all know about the yard sale by now. It's been in several of our publications, but it is coming up, and we need two things. We need people to shop at the yard sale, and we need people to donate things at the yard sale. And you can contact me if you're not able to bring something on the 3rd, which is the day of setup, September 3rd. You can contact me at 7044, and I will arrange for a pickup at your convenience. You can, I think that the September 3rd hours are 10 to 4 for dropping things off, and September 4th, the day of the sale, is 9 to 5. So I hope you'll all participate. Thank you.
Thank you, Elaine. A lot of work goes into this, and you are helping to coordinate all of it. Thanks. Brandon has a few words for us.
All right, good afternoon. Sorry, I hadn't spoke the last few meetings, so I'll try to make this brief so we can get on to more interesting things than probably what I'm going to talk about. But just wanted to give a couple of reminders and a couple of updates on a few things that y'all may be curious about. We have our next Board of Directors meeting tomorrow at noon, and we will be presenting the budget to our Board of Directors for 2025, in addition to our proposed rate increase that we'll probably have to give this year, just like we have every other year. So we've worked really hard to really get that as low as possible, considering everything that's going on and everything that involves to run spring more. So I'd just like to want to make sure that y'all know about that. And then probably by the end of the week, y'all have the letter that usually comes out from our president of the board, Mr. Ballard, with proposed rate increase. We get that to y'all about 45 days before that takes effect, so we'll get that out pretty quickly this week. And then our next meeting in September will be our budget presentation, where we'll go over the budget, how we got to where we were, some of the things we improved on or had to decrease spending, increase spending. It'll be Dee Redmond's actually be her second time. So she actually presented one time when Philip was not here, so it'll be her first official time as controller presenting, and then also take questions of any kind of financial interest, so we'll answer those. So look forward to September. And I also just want to say thank you to any MAC members that are in here. MAC is our Management Advisory Committee. Kind of functions like our finance committee of other communities or a church, but want to recognize them at our next meeting. But thank you to all that really worked on the budget and helping it get to where it is now, and then present it to the board tomorrow. So second of all, with any new thing, there's always some growing pains. So I wanted to remind everyone, if you are using the reusable takeout containers, to not throw those in the trash or the recycling, or leave them in your apartments. This, again, not unexpected to have, this happen at first, but I know we're seeing a lot of containers, again, like I said, in the trash, in recycling containers, and then left in your room. So please make sure that you're bringing those boxes and putting them back in the return boxes in both dining rooms. We'll make sure that housekeeping, when they come in once a week, that they're picking up any, containers that were left in rooms. But it's hard to fish it out of the trash or the recycling container when there's a lot of stuff on top of it. So, and as hard as Andy works, and he's got a dirty job, literally, I'm not going to ask him to fish those out continuously out of the trash can. So please try to just help remember to just throw those in the boxes. You don't have to clean them out. Just throw them in there, and we'll sanitize them properly, just like we do any other dishes. So we'll continue to remind people of that. But if you know a friend or a neighbor, if you see somebody tossing one where they're not supposed to be, The only place they're supposed to go is back into the drop boxes in the dining room. So thank you for your help with that. And I look forward to speaking with y'all next month. So have a great day.
Thank you, Brandon. Jim Bundy, will you introduce our program for today?
Yes, I will, Alan. Thank you very much. I want to thank all of you for coming to the program today. It's really gratifying to see this auditorium full of people, and I think we've got a very exciting program today that you're going to enjoy. I hope there's also a lot of you watching on 1341, and again, thank Charlie Bryan for his camera work in making that possible. You will notice that you've got a handout in your seats today, but it doesn't have the slide presentations. If any of you don't have one of those, see if you got somebody next to you that's a couple that maybe will give you theirs, and if you can't, we'll come up with one before the end of the day that you might possibly have. But we've distributed 90, and I believe we have probably more than 90 people who are here. But those of you who are couples, you only need one, and some other people might really want one of them. The reason that we don't have any handouts as far as the presentation slides are concerned is that Jerry has come with 250 slides that he's going to show us, taking us from the mountains to the sea. The house rules remain the same. No questions until the end of the presentation. And then if you have a question, you will be recognized and a microphone will be brought to you so that everyone can hear the question in the auditorium as well as those who are watching on 1341. Full disclosure, today's presenter, Dr. Jerry Barker, and I have been professional and personal friends for about 50 years. We had the privilege of working together at NC State University, and even though we were doing completely different things, I was scheduling students in the class and keeping up with their grades. Jerry was looking after their physical and mental health. But we answered to the same boss, we attended the same staff meetings, we participated in many events and activities in what was called at that time the Division of Student Affairs. Jerry sent me a full resume, which goes on for several pages, that he's participated in all sorts of activities and awards he's won and publications he's made, but I'm just going to do some highlights. Jerry was born in Danville, Virginia, but has spent his adult life in Raleigh since 1969, so he considers this to be his hometown. In fact, he lives just up the street, Creedmoor Road, from Springmoor, about 5 miles up. He attended Appalachian State University on a wrestling scholarship, where he obtained a Bachelor of Science degree in Health and Physical Education. From Auburn University in Alabama, he earned a Master of Science degree in Health Education, and he has also been awarded a Doctor of Education degree in Adult Education from NC State University. His wife, Shirley, was a teacher at Northridge Elementary School for about 30 years, and they have 2 adult daughters and 2 grandchildren. He began working at NC State as a physical education instructor and assistant wrestling coach in 1969. He became the health education supervisor with the Wake County Public School System in 1974, but he got called back to NC State in 1980 as the coordinator of health education programs. And he held that position until 1985 when he became the director of student health services, a position which he held until he retired in 2011. He has been involved with the Mountain to Sea Project for many years, serving as the president of the Friends of the MST in 2013 to 2015, and he is currently on the board of directors. He is the author of a book, Discovering the Mountain to Sea Trail, which was published this spring, and we're going to be talking a little bit more about the book at the end of the presentation. So I invite you now to lace up your boots, and let's go hiking with Jerry.
Tim,
You got it?
I got this.
Let me see if I can hit the right
Just hit
spot.
that.
Well, I lost the, there it goes.
All right,
All right, you're on.
I'm on. This is wonderful. It is wonderful to have so many people here.
This is the last time I want you to look at me because I want you to look at these beautiful slides that I'm going to share with you about North Carolina. I have thoroughly enjoyed working with the Mountain to Sea Trail. It's all volunteer efforts. The book that I've written is all the profits go to the Mountain to Sea Trail, the Friends of the Mountain to Sea Trail. And this is one of the greatest things North Carolina's got going for it is our beauty, the wonderful outdoors that North Carolina has. And this trail showcases that from the mountains to the sea. And I got to fly through these slides. Sometimes it'll almost look like a movie you're watching instead of slideshows because I'm going to move so quickly. I'm so happy that after 6 years of working on this book about the Mountain to Sea Trail with UNC Press, probably the best publisher in North Carolina. They're wonderful. They've produced a book. I've told them that the book that they published is better than what I gave them. They really improved the book. But you see in the description here, this is a companion for armchair explorers. You don't have to be a gung-ho hiker. You know, you read about these people hiking the Appalachian Trail doing 40 miles a day or whatever. You can sit on your fanny just like you are right now and read this book and have the same fun experiences, except you won't get the cardiovascular activity. But it is designed so that anybody, my wife is not a hiker, but she could sit down and read this and enjoy it because it talks about the history and culture near the trail. I've done the whole trail. This is our sign that you'll see along the trail, and this is why it's 1,100 miles. It's only if you just start over here at Murphy and go to Manteo, it's only like 485 miles, I think. But we're at 1,175 miles because we just wiggle our way all around the state. We're divided into 18 segments, and that helps for the maintainers. Like Falls Lake is in section 10. I maintain a section at Falls Lake. But it's a wonderful trail, and here we go on this quick history lesson. Alan DeHart and Alan Householder were the first two people to hike the trail in 1997. Alan was a professor at Lewisburg College and helped start the trail. The first two girls to hike the trail was 2003. They lived in Asheville, and one of them, this young lady, is still active up in the Asheville area. We've had an 84-year-old lady hike the trail. She was from Pennsylvania, came down to North Carolina for 3 or 4 different trips. Her sons brought her down, dropped her off, picked her up a month later, and she ended up hiking the whole trail. Quite an interesting lady. We've had a Muslim family. We had a program a few years ago. It was a 40 Great Day Hikes in our 40th anniversary. And this family, when school was closed during COVID, they took their family, the children, and hiked all of the 40 Great Day Hikes. Most of them were 3 to 5 mile hikes. And they said their kids loved it. They could do the geography, the history, all sorts of lessons, but they really loved that. I'm not going to show all of these slides that introduce each section, but for instance, the trail starts in the Smokies at Clingman's Dome and works its way through the Smokies. This is one of the longest sections where we have no road walking. This is 26 miles through the woods. We then cross Qualla Boundary. This is like 54,000 acres that the Cherokee own. It's an independent nation, but they own the land. They purchased the land with their money. But we come down and see the history museums, the Museum of the Cherokee Indian. We get on the parkway and hike along the parkway up to Water Rock Knob to end that section. So in my guidebook, I have this map for each particular section. This is the Cherokee words that they could come up with for the Mountains to Sea Trail, the mountains you have to go through to get to the big water. But the Cherokee language, I thought that was interesting. So this is the terminus of the mountains in the west, and the Cherokee Indians are trying to get Clingman's Dome changed to Kauai, which is the Cherokee name for that sacred mountain. And I cover things like that in the book, a lot of the history of how things got named and what they mean, and so it's really interesting. These 3 guys finished. They started in the east and hiked to the west, and 2 years ago they finished the MST at the same time. And just a picture of 3 completers. The trail in the mountain looks like this a lot of the time, but about 6 or 7 months of the year, you could see it looking like this. And we have people that still hike during the winter weather too, but not too many. You got to be a little bit off to want to hike in the cold winter when you're slipping and sliding. Not people like you all. Well, you go through the Smokies, you come to Mingus Mill, a mill that's been there since the 1700s in one form or another. But it's a beautiful mill to visit. But a lot of people don't realize that from the parking lot, you can go about 50 feet up a hill and find the cemetery of the enslaved workers that worked that mill up until the middle of the 1900s. And so I try to point a lot to the indigenous history, the black history, people of color history, because that's never been covered in anything written about the Mountain to Sea Trail. In fact, there hadn't been a history of the MST written since 2020. I mean, 2000. So we got 24 years of history that I tried to catch up on too. I'm not going to tell about all the flowers and scenery that we point out along the trail, so you'll have to just read some of these, but we do have a lot of beautiful scenery. So we get to Water Rock Knob, another sacred peak. It's on the Blue Ridge Parkway. It's the highest visitor center in the entire Blue Ridge Parkway. And then we just randomly some slides I'll show you along the trail. Now, here's let me go back. Here's a picture of me right here. I'm looking energetic because we haven't started hiking yet. Later that day, I didn't look quite that energetic because we started in Asheville, and sometimes I do stupid things. We started in Asheville, which is the lowest point, and went uphill for 14 miles, carrying the heaviest packs. We were going to carry the whole trip the first day. But I was trying to torture the students. I keep forgetting that it tortures me when I do that with students. But this gives you just a summary of a trip. These students did 70 miles in 7 days. When the sun is shining, you see they're just having a big old time hiking along the trail. But then it rains occasionally. These girls happen to be crazy, and they're still smiling even though it's raining. Because most people don't smile when it's raining, but maybe it's for the picture. Everybody loves to hike, but when you come to a stream, there's nothing feels better than taking your boots off and soaking your feet in a stream to prevent blisters or to help heal the pain in your feet. Our meals are prepared this way. We have bear canisters because there are bears in the Pisgah National Forest area and the Asheville area. We have propane gas stoves. We carried our food in bags in our packs. We boil our water, cut up our food for dinner, and the students learn a lot about preparing and food and traveling on the trail. Camping at night, just find a spot along the trail, pitch our tent, spend the night, and get up the next morning and do it all again. So this was just one representation of a 70-mile hike. We have a number of wilderness areas in North Carolina where nothing can be done mechanically to that piece of land. Middle Prong is the first one we cross, Shining Rock Wilderness Area, Linville Gorge Wilderness Area, and others. Interesting land that's never been improved on by humans, by people. Here's one of our maintainers at Falls Lake, but she's coming across this group of older folks up in the Blue Ridge Parkway area doing a flower hike during the spring. They do a lot of flower hikes along the parkway because it's so beautiful. Pisgah Inn. How many of you have ever been to Pisgah Inn? Wonderful place, isn't it? Food delicious. We didn't camp there on my trip, but it is a wonderful place, and that ends this particular section. We leave Pisgah Inn down here in the bottom. We head to Asheville, Craggy Gardens, up to Mount Mitchell, and that's section 3. The Vanderbilts, George Vanderbilt built a lodge in 1903 up near Pisgah Inn. The ruins are still there. Interesting what he built there. And just the whole Blue Ridge Parkway scenery and along the Mountain Sea Trail is gorgeous as you travel. It's just unbelievable. This is the Blue Ridge Parkway Visitor Center outside of Asheville. This is Big Butt Trail. I believe somebody posed for this picture. I'm not sure, but a big butte is just a big hill. But this lady and her hiking friend wanted to have a cute picture of that. Craggy Gardens, I'm sure some of you have been there, the Craggy Garden Visitor Center. You can climb up to Craggy Pinnacle and look out over the Pisgah National Forest, and just one of the most beautiful areas in North Carolina. We have more species of salamanders in North Carolina, and most of them are in the Smokies in the mountainous area than anywhere else in the world. Here's another little brief story. I got up at 5 o'clock one morning, drove to Asheville with a couple of my friends, and I'm just hiking and having a big old time. But I made that mistake again. I've started in Asheville, heading to Mount Mitchell, 4,000 feet higher. So I'm not real smart, and a lot of the trail looks like this, lots of rocks and steep climbs. And at the end of a 19-mile day, this is how I felt. I laid down, I said, take a picture because I feel like I could just roll over and die right here. This is right before we headed up the last section up to the top of Mount Mitchell. This was a 19-mile day. It was my longest day. I've hiked the whole trail, whole 1,175 miles. My longest day, 19 miles. And the next day, I got up. We hiked about 4 miles down, and I jumped up in the air. I only jumped about this high. And that was my last day at the Blue Ridge Visitor Center. Mount Mitchell, our highest peak, and then we head to Linville Gorge. This is Table Rock Mountain here, but behind there is Grandfather Mountain. But this is Linville Gorge, considered the Grand Canyon of the East. It's a beautiful area. They do have wild animals there. This is our biggest river crossing. You have to cross the Linville River, except when it's about waist high. We have a reroute where you have to go about 4.5 miles out of your way because the river is too dangerous. Maintenance on the trail is done by volunteers. This is Lake James down near Morganton, and these people are maintaining trail up in the Linville Gorge area. We're constantly improving the trail, cutting down trees that fall in storms and so forth. But Linville Gorge is one of my favorite places in all of North Carolina for its wildness. The rhododendron and mountain laurel are profuse. There was a fire tower on top back until 1959. This is no longer there because fire towers aren't needed anymore with all the technology. But again, we described some of the fire towers across the state. This is me, and this is Steve Metcalf in the back. He was a senator from that area and then served in the legislature for a while. And Steve and I were hiking near Linville Gorge, and you cross the creek about 14 times. He didn't tell me it was going to be this deep one time. But ice cold water will surely refresh you. Section 5 gets you into the Grandfather Mountain area through Boone and up to Devil's Garden Overlook at the Parkway, where it ends up here near Sparta, and that is the end of the mountain, the mountainous portion of the MST. Some of you remember, if you're North Carolina relatives, natives, that in 1984 the viaduct around Grandfather Mountain was finished, and if you look at this part right in here, the next slide, this is what that's that same rock right there. And this is the viaduct that they built, not touching the mountain except where the footings stand. And that's what Hugh Morton wanted, to preserve the beauty of Grandfather Mountain. So we go about 15 miles along the shoulder of Grandfather Mountain, then up to Cone Park. Cone Park is a beautiful park donated by the Cone family. They have horses there, horseback riding trails. We don't allow horseback riding on the MST because it messes up the hiking trail, but horse trails are fine for that. The Junaluska community is a community I share about from the Boone area. This is where the black community that had developed in the Boone area, they were up on the side of the mountain there, I can't think of the mountain now, but the mountain there above Boone. They provided a lot of the housekeeping and the menial labor in the Appalachian State University area. But, until the 60s, they weren't able to go to Appalachian. But they had a robust community, and they're spreading the word about that now. They wrote a book about it about 10 years ago. But they had their own school, their own baseball team, their own barbers, beauty shops. But they'd come down the mountain to Boone to make their living and serve the community. But it's an interesting history, and one of the histories that we've kept silent too long about the Native American black communities. Some of you may know Howard Lee on the left, and Tom Earnhardt, who does Exploring North Carolina. I had the pleasure of going with them up into the Boone area to film one of Tom's programs. But Howard Lee is the one who was Secretary of Natural Resources when he gave a speech at Lake Junaluska, said, we need a trail from the mountains to the sea in North Carolina to show the beauty of this great state. Howard just recently turned 90 years old, and I've got 2 hikes planned for him in the next month or 2 because he still likes to go hiking. We're not doing dirt and rocks and roots anymore, but we're going to do greenways from now on. But Howard is a faithful supporter of the Mountain to Sea Trail. This is at Mount Jefferson, where Howard had to walk through the cow pasture. Sometimes we get off of the Blue Ridge Parkway and walk on shoulders of the road. Sometimes it's pouring down rain. Here's a family hiking in the rain. Campgrounds along the parkway. This is up at Doughton Park, one of the beautiful, beautiful areas of the parkway with bluffs and open areas, except for this. This is the black restaurant that was built in the 1940s along the parkway there when they had a Bluffs restaurant. It happened to never be used. This was the restroom for that, but they're getting ready to sort of refurbish that as a history site. That's what the blacks had to use in the 40s and 50s, but because of history, it never got used. I love pictures of children on the trail. The trail most of the time is suitable for children with no problem. This is the Benninger cabin up near the end of the parkway, on the northern part of the parkway. The Benninger family built that cabin in, I think it was 1886, lived there until the parkway bought the land, and the parkway is just on the other side of the house up there on the ridge. And Miss Benninger lived there until 1936, and she said, I got to get out of this place. There's too much traffic on that Blue Ridge Parkway. And there wasn't very much traffic in 1936 or whatever, but she'd had enough of all that traffic because they were out there in the boonies when they were living there. The flowers are unbelievable. It's a beautiful place to visit and hike. So then we drop down into the Piedmont, the beginning of the Piedmont. Stone Mountain is one of the beautiful landmarks of this section. The trail drops off of this peak that the picture's taken from is Cedar Rock. We drop down to the base of Stone Mountain and then continue on our way over to Elkin. Historic churches are in that park. The Hutchison Homestead is in Stone Mountain State Park, and a lot of remnant buildings. It's just an interesting history right here on the state park. We're just so blessed in North Carolina with great state parks and beautiful places. So the trail stops at numerous campsites where the through hikers can, get a night's rest. Carter Falls is a recent addition to the MST and to state parks. A man in that area realized that this was right on the edge of the Mountain Sea Trail, so he ended up selling his property with this waterfall to state parks. Now, the folks in Elkin love doing things like the Enchanted Forest. They decorate this at Halloween and just make it even more fun. But Elkin is one of our great trail towns along the trail, along the MST. The Over Mountain Victory Trail goes through Elkin and a few other places, but Elkin highlights it probably better than anybody else. Of the 1780s Over Mountain Victory Trail down at Kings Mountain. The Yadkin River has about 30 miles of paddling that can be done in addition or instead of hiking along the Yadkin River. You can get in it and paddle it. Just scenery along the trail. Rockford is a little town. It's had 4 of the old presidents visit Rockford when Rockford was a big town in North Carolina. Now it's a little nobody town, but it's a beautiful place. And let me tell you a quick story. This lady in pink here, I hiked with her about 3 or 4 times. The lady on the right has hiked the entire trail. This lady on the left is from down on the coast. She was having troubles with her family and her youth, her children, and the lady on the right invited her to come hike. So we had ample opportunities to talk during the trip, and this is one of the best examples I ever heard of the mental health benefits. After hiking 4 or 5 different times on the MST, she went to community college and got a degree and got a much better job and just turned her life around. She's told me numerous times that hiking the MST did so much for her mentality of having the time to think and talk about things as we walked along the trail. And I think a lot of people get mental health benefits from it. We've all studied Stoneman's Raid in North Carolina. 2 guys in this house, when the Stoneman's Raid approached their house, they shot one of Stoneman's soldiers, and then they took off running and jumped in the Yadkin River and never did get found, so they survived when Stoneman's Raid came through their house, their area there. Little brown jugs is this thing that grows on the ground that produces that little puff when you step on it. So then we move to this section where you have Pilot Mountain. Pilot Mountain, this is the Surreytown Mountains, the first group of mountains, and then the back mountains are Hanging Rock. This is called the Mountains Away from the Mountains. They're out in the middle of the Piedmont, very unique remnants of these old mountains. Pilot Mountain was used as a navigational tool by people coming down from Pennsylvania and the Native Americans also. There's a cabin on the Pilot Mountain grounds that they're going to renovate and try to make open for the hikers to see. Beautiful rock climbing area and a new visitor center all at Pilot Mountain. So we still have stream crossings, numerous places across. Back roads, particularly in this area from Pilot Mountain to Hanging Rock State Park, uses a lot of private land. This is a schoolhouse that was used until 1905, and then somebody sawed the house in half to make outbuildings out of it. And everybody thought the little schoolhouse, volunteer schoolhouse, was gone. But somebody found one of them had been used, half of it had been used for a corn crib, I think, and they renovated it and now use it for telling people about how school used to be back in the early days. You know, when some of y'all went to school in little one-room schoolhouses. There's 685 steps from the Hanging Rock Visitor Center up to the main peak there, Moore's Knob. And then from Moore's Knob, you can look back and you can see Pilot Mountain way back there in the distance, about 22 miles of Mountain to Sea Trail between those two parks. So then we're going to leave from the Danbury Hanging Rock area and come down. A lot of this is road walking at the present time, and we're going to try to get off of that. This is trail here, red is trail. So we still have about 400 miles that we walk along the shoulders of the road, and that's a slow process. We built trail on all the state parks, national forests, so now we're having to buy land or get landowners to give us right-of-ways. So Walnut Cove has a Rosenthal school. Back in the 20s, North Carolina had more of these schools built for black children to attend school. Most of the communities like Walnut Cove had turned them into community centers and trying to preserve that history. Oak Ridge has this area. It's called the Cascades. It looks like a mountain area, but it's right there in the Piedmont in the middle of flatlands. Beautiful little place. The Greensboro Watershed Lakes has a lot of boardwalk because it gets swampy at times like these rains we've just had. But we go all around northern Greensboro on the watershed lakes. Then we come out at Pretty's General Store. Some of you may remember when you had a general store that was like the Walmart of your community. It did everything. You could go in that store and you could buy your cigarettes, your food, your candies, your drinks. You know, in some of the older days, you could get married there, buy your casket there. I mean, they had everything. Most of those stores have disappeared, but Pretty is still, our hikers really love it. So we're down into the area that takes you to Hillsboro. Hillsboro, filled with history. The Hall River Dam at Glencoe is an interesting place. It was a big cotton mill, but the cotton workers all didn't have cars. They made only $1 a day, so they had to have their little houses near the cotton mill. And somebody rejuvenated this community, and the houses are all painted. So this is the Glencoe community near Burlington. And they also have the world's largest textile heritage museum. They collected stuff from all over North Carolina, and it's an interesting museum there. This is a group from Mebane. There's another group like them in Greensboro. They're called Girl Trek, and it's predominantly an African-American group of ladies that are trying to get more exercise to improve their health, and we're trying to help promote their activities and get them onto the Mountain to Sea Trail more. But it's wonderful. They found health benefits, community, getting out hiking, and just a great group. So we come to the Eno River, which is beautiful at certain times of the year, just a gorgeous place that has been preserved. A slave cemetery, the old cemetery in Hillsboro. We walk right through downtown Hillsboro. Then we come to the replica Occoneechee Village. This was a feature that John Blackfeather Jeffries created. John died a couple of years ago, but he was once chief of the Occoneechee tribe. Occoneechee Tribe of the Saponi Band is their full name, and he's made this happen. And this is on a site near where a replica village just like this was in Hillsborough. They have archaeological evidence of a couple of villages that the Eno River and the Occoneechee Indians lived on along the Eno River. The Occoneechee Speedway, the only remaining original speedway of NASCAR, there's a 1 mile track there, and a couple of cars are left there, and it's a great walking trail, 1 mile flat. You know, you don't have to go up in the hills. This is a home site. They've just put in an interpretive sign about Fanny Breeze. She was a person that went around and delivered babies in the Hillsborough area, a black lady, but delivered babies for everybody, and just has an interesting history. This is a spring. Some of you may have had springs like that in your backyard when you grew up. When we didn't have running water, and that's right along the trail. The rock quarry in Hillsborough, where they got the stone for building Interstate 85. Chorus frogs. You'll be walking around on a trail, and you just hear the frogs like crazy in the springtime of the year, and all of a sudden they'll quit. And they all quit in unison. I don't know why that's called the chorus frogs. Maybe they were trained to quit when the choir director says quit. Somebody's coming down the trail. So this is Penny's Bend nature area over in the eastern Durham. Beautiful area. Then we come to Falls Lake, one of my favorite areas. Old house with the daffodils flooding the front yard every year. An old farmstead there. We tried to save this as much as we could, but we just aren't going to be able to. This belongs to the Corps of Engineers. But we've found a well on this property, a rock-lined, hand-dug well. And it has history, but we just hadn't been able to find a lot of it. Love these Adamasco water lilies. We got places where that's good. Who was telling me about the tunnel under Interstate 85? That this farmer owned this piece of land. And when they built Interstate 85, they cut his property in half. He said, I've got to have egress, so they built a tunnel. The MST goes under Interstate 85, and he's a friendly landowner who helps us out. Falls Lake, one of my last stories I'm going to tell is about these two black girls. I wondered why their mom had them out hiking so much, because I see them all over the state. She posted pictures, and I thought, well, it's really neat that mom's taking these kids out. And it was only about 6 months ago when I found out that their dad had been suffering from cancer, and mom was getting the kids out to do fun things and get away from the more morbid stuff at home with a really sick dad. Mental health again, being outdoors, even here to get outdoors and enjoy the sunshine and fresh air is refreshing. But it made me change my opinion of what that mom was doing, helping those children during this difficult time. Wake County is one of the last places where you'll see mountain laurel, but we have some beautiful stands along the trail. At Blue Jay Point County Park, we built this sign that shows it's 630 miles to the Smoky Mountains and only 539 miles left to get to the Outer Banks. But that gets taken, the pictures get taken there a lot. Some of you may have heard of Fish Dam Road. This is the remnant of Fish Dam Road. It was a heavily used Indian trading path, then it became a colonial wagon road, and it runs from northern Durham all the way over to Hillsborough. And we've identified 9 places where the MST crosses Fish Dam Road. And this is one spot that we've just put up a sign that tells the history and then has a QR code where you can find out more history. Most people don't have any idea they're standing on a historic road that was used for 200 years until cars came in and, took it away. Remnants of an old, we don't know whether this is a silo or a steel or what, but lots of remnants. The Latino groups are getting real active in hiking, and we're trying to help them use more of the Mountain to Sea Trail. Families hike the trail. A lot of volunteers. You can see in this picture, I think this kid was about 15, and this guy somewhere is about 72 years old or 82 years old. So all sorts get out there and maintain the trail. This slide shows you that we leave the Raleigh area and you can take the Neuse River Paddle Trail, or you can do the Coastal Crescent Trail down here along the Cape Fear River before we head out to the finish at the Outer Banks. So here's the Neuse River Greenway. I put this picture in, but I don't think Carol Schroeder. This is Carol Schroeder, who's a resident here. Carol, raise your hand, Carol. Yay. Carol and I got to do a couple of trips on the Neuse River Greenway, and she was one of my cohorts over at NC State in the Career Center office. So, Carol, there's your little bike. She was smart. She had this little old bitty bike that she could pedal faster than me. Well, the Neuse River Greenway is wonderful, and families enjoy it. This is where the Mill Burney Dam used to be that got destroyed a few years ago so that we could get the river back to a normal level. This is Howard again, and he's with Cedric, the first black hiker. We went 40 years before we had a black man complete the whole MST. Cedric was a wonderful young man with a psychology practice in Wilmington who's recently joined the Peace Corps. Last time I talked to him, he was in Madagascar, loving it, but he was a great first hiker for us and loved it and talked a lot about it. Some people go out and hike parts. This is the Neuse River Greenway there near the dam. We go through Clayton. We go through Smithfield. We're trying to get some of that off-road. The Neuse River paddle starts in Smithfield, goes through a few major towns, Goldsboro, Kinston, Newbern, and down in this area near Havelock. Camp Seagull is right over here. Yay for our man on the front row here who worked there for years and years. A wonderful option, and I did the 135-mile option on this. When I was 70, I came home one day and I told my wife, I said, I found this 25-year-old girl that wants to go paddling with me. Is that okay? I don't know whether I worded that right or not, but she said, you can do whatever you want to. But she had been 5 years as an instructor in the Boundary Waters area up north and was wilderness first aid trained. I said, well, look, if I have a heart attack, she's going to be the best person on the trip for me. But she did the whole trail that year. She was from Oregon, and we did the 5-day trip. The first day, of course, it rained. It was not one of my favorite days. We camped at Howell Woods, where they have this little outpost along the river, raining that night. We stayed at Seven Springs. They have a place where you can camp behind a little store there. This is me in one of our better moments when it's not raining. It was just a beautiful paddle. I never paddled that long in my life. Some people take their dogs with them. Some take their husbands if they can't get a good dog. But we have some taking groups down the river. And this is after you pass through Newbern. You get to where the river widens out to 3 miles. Where the Neuse runs into Pamlico Sound is the largest river in America. Now, I looked that up because I thought, surely the Mississippi is. No, it's the Neuse River is 6 miles wide when it runs into Pamlico Sound. So I got out just a little bit before Newbern, and I sent Eliza on by herself because I said, I'm not getting out in that 5 mile wide stuff, and a storm come up and I drowned because I didn't know what I was doing very much. But so Eliza and I traded. She got another sea kayak and did the Neuse River. So I'm just going to breeze through down. This is down from Newton Grove, and this is mostly road walking. We've got a lot of work to do down there. But Bentonville Battlefield is one place we do have some trail. It's a beautiful arrangement with us working with the people at Bentonville, and we're getting ready to add 2 additional miles in the next year. But miles are hard to come up with currently. So a lot of the land at Bentonville is owned by the National Battlefield Trust, but they still lease it to farmers to grow crops on it, which is a good multi-purpose use of the land. But it's a great battlefield memorial. The largest battle fought in North Carolina was at Bentonville. This is one of the trenches that was dug in 1865 that's still visible. I mean, it's pretty amazing. The house, the Harper House, was turned into a hospital at the time. They said the limbs, arms and legs were piled up even with a window as they served people during the war. The Harpers owned a few slaves. The Cole Plantation owned a few slaves, and we're trying to reconstruct more of that history for the public to learn about. We work our way to Rollsboro, which is a little community that we helped them. They wanted to do something to improve the remnants of an old railroad track through town. And so we helped them by getting a grant to buy bricks and getting labor to build this walkway. And it became a wonderful part of Roseboro's history. And the next time they had a gathering of the community, they said it was the largest one they'd ever had. So it was something that the Mountain Sea Trail did good to help promote that economy that Howard Lee talked about 47 years ago of making people come to these towns and buy gas and food and hike and have a good time. Jones Lake, some of you may have been there. It's a beautiful state park, but it was designed initially to be a state park for black people. And they had a black superintendent, the first black superintendent in North Carolina parks. And he would baptize people from all the local churches would come to Jones Lake and be baptized. And it has a wonderful history, again, that a lot of people don't know about, but it's a beautiful state park. Singletary Lake State Parks. We built this bridge this year to get into some new land. We're getting ready to add 12 miles of new trail down here, but we're having to put a bridge, an 135-foot bridge across Turnbull Creek. It's very swampy land, and it'll be the biggest thing ever built in Bladen County to get people out hiking. But we've been the stimulus behind that. Most of the road walking down there is on Forest Service roads, just beautiful country, longleaf pine country. This is one of the oldest houses in eastern North Carolina, and we go right near it. And then we head over, from here we come down and head over to Burgaw, Interstate 40 is right over here. And one of the things I'll point out is that almost nobody knew that the Gullah Geechee African natives that we had imported here to grow rice also came up into North Carolina. You think of it as basket weavers in South Carolina and Georgia, but they had a lot in this area from Moores Creek National Battlefield down to Wilmington was swampier than it even is now. And it was huge rice growing plantations, and they brought the Gullah Geechee slaves in, enslaved people, and it's an interesting history. There is a memorial board in Moores Creek National Battlefield about that. Another one of the Rosenthal schools that's now a community center. This is our second black hiker, and he happens to be working in a Mariposa autism school in Cary. But he took a year off and hiked the Appalachian Trail and the Mountain to Sea Trail the same year, and just a wonderful young man, and pictured here at Moores Creek National Battlefield. And this is the bridge. Well, this is the creek. This is not the bridge from the 1776, but it's the creek where we tricked the British and won the battle, and it was a decisive battle for the colonials. So there's a North Carolina Gullah Geechee Greenway, and we're going to push that a lot to try to make people aware of it. We're the only place in the world where the carnivorous sundews and Venus flytraps are. And it's interesting that people get to see those. One of the best preserved train stations is in Burgaw that we go right by. Holly Shelter Game Land, 85,000 acres in this game land. And we're getting ready to bring in about 4.5 more acres of land coming out of Holly Shelter to get over to Surf City. And we've worked out a deal with a conservation group and the military in Jacksonville. We got them to pay the money to buy the land, but we're going to build 4.5 miles of trail through there to get us off of 4.5 miles of Highway 17, which is a terrible road to walk on. Again, beautiful with the longleaf pines. And so hikers get to see the ocean for the first time at Surf City. We do 9 miles of hiking there. You hit the beach at Surf City and go 9 miles north, North Topsail, and then we come back inland. But on Surf City, the Beasley Turtle Hospital is a great place that people stop at, and another directional sign. Ocean City is a little town that was purchased, and the land was purchased in the 40s, and it became a black community on North Topsail, and it's still in existence. They have road sign markers now all through Surf City indicating that it's that community. Otherwise, most people don't know that community was there. get to Jacksonville, we walk the Jacksonville Greenway. It's the only place on the trail that we have a tank caution sign. We really don't have tanks shooting at us as we hike through there, but you would hike faster, wouldn't you, if you knew that you got to get out of there real quick. But the Jacksonville people have been wonderful for the trail we have through there. The Nusiak is a 21-mile trail through the swampy area, and it's a beautiful trail, but just don't go when the bugs are out or the storms have come in. It's a wild place. More carnivorous plants, and then we're down, we leave the end of the Nusiak Trail. See, the Nusiak Trail runs all the way from the Neuse River 21 miles down to Oyster Point, and we have a campground there. We've just made a decision to buy a piece of land from here to there. We have an arrangement. We're going to be signing an agreement soon. Conservation land had been wanting that land. We got the landowner to be willing to sell it, and now we're going to be able to connect, get off of this road walking here. We're going to have off-trail here into North River wetlands over to this road here, 770. This is an interesting place called Down East. Low land, it takes you all the way out to the Cedar Island Ferry where you go over to Ocracoke. This is the Intercoastal Waterway. We carried the bridge over that. And down east is what they consider themselves. They're not just east. They're not Outer Banks. They're down east. A beautiful, low-lying piece of country. Then you catch the Cedar Island Ferry over to Ocracoke, then the ferry to Hatteras, then up to Jockey's Ridge. And it's just a beautiful route. People sometimes ask me what was my favorite part of the whole hike, and I say it was Ocracoke. I hiked one day from early morning to late afternoon, did the entire Ocracoke Island, saw one person, saw a zillion birds, porpoises were jumping in the water. I mean, it was just one of those great, serene days. My feet hurt, but everything else was wonderful. It was just a great, great day. It's really a remote part of North Carolina that I'm glad we have a ferry that'll take us there and place people can vacation there. So we'll work our way over to Cape Hatteras. Probably most of you have not been to the graveyard of the Atlantic Museum. It's a new museum. It's a wonderful museum. In my book, I tell about one of the stories that I got from this place is that they had a shipwreck. It was a small ship loaded with Doritos was one of the things they were carrying. So the locals salvaged all those Doritos and said they enjoyed Doritos for the next couple of years. All the inhabitants of the Hatteras. But they tell a lot of stories about the shipwrecks and a lot of graphics. I mean, it's a good museum for North Carolina to have, right at the tip of Hatteras Island. And Hatteras is just a wonderful place to hike. When the tide is low, it's fun to walk the beach. When the tide gets high and you have to walk up here on this soft sand, almost everybody goes out to the road and walks the road. It just kills you. Another trick people tell me about is, I did that and we biked a lot of it too, and we do allow people to bike it. But they say, go out in the morning and see which way the wind is blowing. And make sure you walk the opposite direction. Don't walk into the wind. Walk with the wind to your back, or you won't have any eyeballs left at the end of the day. Which is a wonderful piece of advice. Walk with the wind to your back. How many steps do you think the MST takes from the mountains to the sea? I'll give you three choices: 1, 2, or 3 million. How many think it's 1 million steps from the mountains to the sea? Nobody. How many think it's 2 million? How many think it's 3 million? So y'all are getting tired already. I can tell you're tired from this long walk. Feels like 3 million. 2,112,000 steps is according to some estimate. It felt like 3 million to me when I was doing it. there's a place just below the Hatteras Lighthouse, which is being renovated. Don't go to the Hatteras Lighthouse for the next year because you can't go in it. They're replacing all the mortar and all the bricks and all the ironwork inside. They're totally redoing because most of that is 150 years old and in bad shape. So it's one of those things that the National Park got money from one of the federal grants, and it's some that'll help preserve it for another 150 years, we hope. But there's 4 miles of trail through woods right below the Hatteras Lighthouse. Most people never see that. You think of the Outer Banks as sand and that's it. But this is where the water comes from for all of the lower part of Hatteras Island and the Hatteras community, waves, all those. And it's the water recharge area, and it's a beautiful wooded area that has some lakes in it, and just a gorgeous 4-mile hike after you've been on the sand. Pea Island covers the northern part up to the Bass Knight Bridge, a beautiful area. Some people ask, do we have any places for accessible hiking? Would you believe that Pea Island has, I think, about 1.5 miles of accessible paved walking? I think total I've come up with about 64 miles of accessible trail along the Mountain to Sea Trail. And that's one of the things I'm going to work on when I come off the board this year. I'm going to tackle that to try to identify all those spots so that people that need to use a walker or cane or wheelchair, they'll know all the places they can go to along the Mountain to Sea Trail and use it. The Body Island Lighthouse, we do not go right by there. We're on the beach, and it's about a quarter of a mile off the beach, but most people take the time to go over there. This is our only blind hiker that's done the entire Mountain to Sea Trail. Trevor and his dog, Tennille. Tennille is the only dog to ever get a plaque from us for finishing the Mountain to Sea Trail. But Trevor was just an amazing fella to do this legally blind. He could make out dark and light, and that was about it. But he had a smart dog. And we make it, at the end of the trail, we're at Jockey's Ridge, and we've just built this Eastern Terminus Monument. So this is for people to take their pictures at the end of the trail if they've hiked from the west to the east. And we've now got to figure out what we're going to do at the west to get a nice scenic spot. You just have to stand on top of that tower at Klingman's Dome. But this is really wonderful. And but then the hikers still, after they take their picture, they still got to walk to the top of the sand dune. That's the finishing point. This lady did the trail. She's from Chesapeake, Virginia. She has the fastest known time, 24 days, averaged 40 miles a day. So more power to her. Here's me after 69 days, spent over 3 years. It took me 3 years to do it. Most of my hiking, I drove from Raleigh. I'd go hike 15 miles, come back home, that kind of thing. And then I went to the mountains and the coast and spent, a week at each and things like that. But most people do it more like me. But right now, there's probably, we think, maybe 6 or 8 people out hiking the whole trail nonstop. And any given day, there's probably 50 people hiking as part of what we call their section hike. They're hiking it and adding it all up, and they'll eventually get there. So see, y'all have a chance. Y'all have to hike just around Wake Forest. So my book tells these and many more stories about the history of the trail. I brought the last 24 years of history up about building the trail and then the places along the trail. And my goal was that more people would just read about the trail and enjoy the history of North Carolina. If you have a child or a grandchild who loves hiking, I'd encourage you to buy one of these books. And I just happen to have 50 books sitting out in the lobby in case you want to buy a book for somebody. I've autographed the books with a statement and my name, but if you want me to make it special for you, I'll be glad to do that too. But all of the proceeds are going to Friends of the Mountain to Sea Trail. I'm doing this out of the goodness of my heart, and I love talking about the MST and wanting people to know more about the Mountain to Sea Trail, but all the profits are going to Friends of the Mountain to Sea Trail. And we'll take, Jim, have I gone overboard? We have more time? We got time for some questions. And I understand somebody's going to take a microphone, and I'll be glad to answer some questions.
Jim Epps, Bald Eagle, Y Indian Guides.
I want to know who counted those 2 million steps.
I didn't, Jim. Jim and I go back a long way. I worked at Camp Sequoia up in the mountains when it was sort of a rival camp with Camp Seagull and Seafair. You know, I would not have wanted to count step. I'm sure somebody said, you know, what's an average step, 32 inches or whatever, and did it. I've seen another estimate. Somebody estimated 2,600,000 and some thousand. I think that's better. But I think currently we use 2,100,000. That's a lot of steps. Y'all have been a great audience. Thank you so much for being here today.
You mentioned rocks and roots. That's what I don't want. I want smooth and not too steep and that sort of thing. You showed some great sections, such as the Forest Service trails and some others. Are those? Can we look those up online or something in anticipation of going to some spot? Or
yeah, good question. The guidebook does not say this is going to be a smooth section for the next 3 miles, but there's a lot of people. There's people in the office of the MST office that could tell you, if you want a particular area, if you want to go to the Jones Lake area. Well, Jones Lake is one of those areas where you don't have a lot of roots and rocks. Mm-hmm. But like at Falls Lake, you're going to always have roots and rocks at Falls Lake.
No, okay, no.
Yeah. And rocks and roots complicated a lot.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Yeah. But I hope in a couple of years we'll have a resource online that'll tell you more about accessible areas, because I think it's something we need. I've told my maintainers, I'm 79. I'm almost at the point where I need an accessible trail. And I'm not talking about being wheelchair bound. I'm talking about just people that are getting have dizzy spells or a little balance. Like I'm not going to take Howard Lee on a dirt and rocks and roots trail anymore, because I know he's not ready for that. So it's important. Yeah.
Communications on the trail and medical facilities.
It's mentioned in the guidebooks. There is a guidebook for each section. It's an excellent guidebook. And there's also an app. The app is excellent. You put it on your phone, and it'll basically, if you plug in where you're going, it'll say, turn left in 10 feet. So you don't even have to watch. I meant to point out that we have a 3-inch white dot is our blaze. The Appalachian Trail has a 3-inch by 6-inch white blaze this way. Ours is just a circle. If you follow the white dots, you can go, from one end to the other to the state. But sometimes people, you come to an intersection, you don't pay attention, you're tired, you got your feet, your eyes down to the ground. If you miss a white dot, you may go a while and say, I hadn't seen a white dot in a long time. Our advice is turn around and go back until you see a white dot. And don't just keep getting deeper and lost. But what was your question? So I got senioritis already. The medical cell service is available in most places. But in the middle of the Smokies, no. Some places on the Outer Banks, it's spotty. Some places along the Neuse River, it's spotty. But most of the trail, you'll have cell signal. Most of the places, you'll use the bathroom in the woods, particularly at our age, But it's not a plush accommodations. But if you go to a state park, in the book, every one of the maps in the book, we've tried to add places that are accessible and places that are have bathrooms. But we don't have them all covered because we don't know every spot that a hiker goes to. So that's a thing you want to prepare yourself when you're getting ready to go do a hike. I did a lot of homework. Every time I go for a hike, I'd tear the pages out of the guidebook that I needed, and I'd make sure I knew where I was going to park my car, how I was going to get somebody to pick me up at the other end, where I could get food if I needed. But normally, you can do 15 miles without having to, buy food.
Is there another question?
Medical care is important, too, to know where that is.
One more question.
Shelters. There are shelters in certain places, but they're scattered. Again, 47 years old sounds like a long, healthy age for a trail, but it takes a lot of time. Who's my maintenance man that said they worked at Allen? Alan said he helped build part of the trail from Highway 50 over to Durham County, and that was 40 years ago. You know, so it takes a long time. Shelters are sketchy. We do have a lot of people that do what's called stealth camping. When it gets near dark, you go hide in the woods and camp, and you get up early in the morning and get out before somebody shoots you. No. Landowners, you know, we say don't camp anywhere within sight of a landowner. Don't camp within sight of the road. You know, get isolated if you need to camp at another place. But we passed through 8 state parks, national forests. Blue Ridge Parkway, you can't camp on Blue Ridge Parkway land, but we have about 6 places where they've given us permission, and it's in the guidebook. So those are good questions.
Thank you, Jerry. That was really a great presentation. I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm exhausted. I never thought I would go 1,175 miles in 45 days, much less 45 minutes, like we just did. Jerry's going to be around here for a while, so any of you who have any additional questions that you want to ask Jerry, feel free to come up and do so, because he's going to make himself available. We've talked about the book, and he's already mentioned this, and I want to let you know that with the approval of the executive committee and the executive director, we're going to have copies of Jerry's book available for you on sale in the in the lobby. This book is a companion to the Trail Guide books, and it's for hikers and armchairs, explorers, as he's already indicated. We're going to be able to put them on sale because, as he's mentioned, none of the profits for the sale of the book go to Jerry. 100% of the profits for the book are going to a nonprofit organization called the Friends of the MST. And in doing so, we're going to sell them in the traditional Springmore way. For those of you who have been with us a while, you know what this is. We don't want to mess with cash and checks and credit cards and all that sort of stuff. When you go out this door, Carol Bryan will be there. She'll have a sheet. All you'll need to do is to put your name and your room number and sign, giving the authorization, and the business office will bill you the $28 that it costs for the book. So you don't have to worry about, I got to go back and get my checkbook or anything. We don't mess with that messy stuff. We just go out here. He's got 50 copies. I think he's got some more. We sell out of the 50. But I think it will be worth your while in order to buy one of these if you so desire. A lot of the pictures that you saw today on the slides are actually in the books that he's got. So just complete the form. Carol will give you the book. It'll be in your monthly statement. Okay, I just want to thank you again. Let's give him another round. That was really a great presentation. All right, coming up, Brandon has already mentioned this, but we've got a situation as far as next month is concerned where we're going to be having the semi-annual business meeting. And that meeting will be on September the 9th at 3 o'clock. It's going to be the budget presentation. Deshaun Redmond will be presenting the budget, and Brandon will be presenting. Prior to the meeting, the Management Advisory Committee will be requesting from residents any questions or comments that you may have about the proposed 2025 budget. And those questions and comments will be compiled prior to the September meeting, and then Brandon and others will be addressing those questions and those comments that have been presented to the Management Advisory Committee. So be on the lookout for the request coming from Susan Walton, who's the chair of the MAC committee, and respond to her by the deadline indicated in her memorandum. That should come out at the end of August or 1st of September. Also next month will be the election of the officers for the 2025 Residents Association. The slate of officers will be posted by the 2025 Nominating Committee prior to the September meeting so that the election of the 2025 officers can take place at that meeting. And watch the bulletin boards and the portal, and so you will be able to see the proposed slate of officers before that meeting. All right, Alan, let's do some door prizes. And again, we remind you that Vadia of First Citizens Bank here at Springmore is the one who provides these door prizes personally for each one of our meetings.
Sheriff, could I get you to pull a ticket here?
One ticket.
One ticket out of this one, and then we do one out of the other. Blue ticket. Number 1480496. And the gray ticket number is 1540031. Okay. Thank you all for being here. Enjoy the remaining dog days of summer, and we will see you next time. Meeting's adjourned.